I ended a recent video by asking my listeners, hey, are there any songs you want to see me cover, things you want to see me talk about? And someone suggested the final movement of the final Beethoven sonata. And when I saw that comment, I thought, man, I have to do it. Personal story real quick. This is one of those pieces that I can remember exactly where I was at the first time I heard it. I was a freshman in college in a class where us piano players go up and play pieces for each other, and you get some practice performing, but also you give comments like, oh, you should work on this, or I really like how you do this part here. And someone played this piece, and I just sat there the entire time, just mesmerized, just like drawn into the really cool world that this piece creates, the sound. It's just so enthralling, just overwhelming emotion. So again, I really wanted to be better known. So I saw his comment and I was like, that's a great idea. Why haven't I thought of this before? So I just want to kind of give you a glimpse of what to listen to so that when you hear this piece next time, you'll have some of that same experience of just, wow. Okay, first things first, this is a sonata. And like all the Beethoven sonatas, it is multi-sectional. There are multiple movements to the piece. This one here is actually only 2 movements. The first movement is not the focus of this video. It is also incredible. It is one of these loud, bombastic, in-your-face Beethoven sonatas. And now for the second movement, the main point of this video. I'm going to start off by just playing a few measures, and maybe for some of you, for the first time, introducing you to this one of the most amazing melodies ever written, and then we'll get into what's going on. For those of you who know this piece, maybe how to make sense of what comes after this beautiful melody. And now I'm going to play a little of the second half of the melody, which is a little more tragic. Now, obviously, all that is incredibly beautiful. Like, you can see why when I was a freshman in college, I was just basically drooling. Like, this is amazing. I had never heard any piece like this before. I was just totally engaged. But what's about to happen next is what begins to confuse a few people. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the first measure of each of the next few sections, just to kind of give you the experience of how far it goes from we start it to where it ends up. So you can have some of that experience of, wait, what happened? I thought this was a beautiful piece. What's going on here? So I'm going to play the first measure of the next section, then I'm going to skip ahead, play measure of the next section, and skip around like that a little bit. And if you think that was pretty different than where we started, check out what happens next. What? Like, how have we gone in just a few short pages from all the way to, like, jazz? Okay, it's not quite that extreme, but you know what I mean. It's pretty shocking, especially considering this was written like 200 years ago. What's going on here is actually something that's fairly rare today, but was extremely common in Beethoven's day, and that is a theme and variation. Maybe you've heard the term theme and variation before. Maybe you thought it was this complicated thing or you saw it on a recital program. Theme and variation, it's a very simple idea. You have a theme and then you're going to vary it. Now, composers, including Beethoven, love to do with theme and variations, especially from the outset, is to have an initial kind of build where you're going to play your theme. Then you're going to do it again, but you're going to incorporate faster notes. And you're going to do it again, the notes are going to get faster. Then again, those are going to get faster. Then at some point you're going to peak, then often Beethoven will kind of drop it back down. Let me give you an example. I'm going to start off here by playing everyone's favorite song, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. I'm going to play it like a theme. I'm just going to play the melody with the chords like this. Now, let's say I wanted to vary that? Well, the first thing I could do is add some quicker notes in the left hand. Now let's say I went to go even further and did another variation. Well, I could add even faster notes in the left hand, like I could have a variation that continues to speed up and then change the feel of it, like you could add in something crazy like this. So hopefully you get the point. I'm playing the theme, and then every variation offers you something new, some new take on that theme, but the theme is still there. It's still hiding in whatever I'm playing. It's just I keep changing it. So the best way to listen to this final movement of the final Beethoven Sonata is to try to track that theme throughout the piece. So that's what I'm going to help you do right now. We're going to get used to that theme, then try to find it in all these variations. So just to remind you, the theme goes like this. So this first variation is actually pretty easy to hear. Instead of this, we're going to get this. Now the next variation is where things start to go really haywire and it gets really difficult to hear. But again, you can kind of train yourself to listen to that melody. So again, we're listening for this. So that melody is right here. It becomes, and then it goes, which now becomes. So again, it's there, it's just getting moved lower, then there's extra notes added into it now instead of just, we get. But you can still match up this melody with the variation measure by measure. So I'm going to play the fifth measure of the original, which is one of my favorite measures. So the original had the, and now we have. So it's still there, it's just now, there's been notes added to it, it's become varied. And then we have the crazy jazz section that goes. And this is often where we'll lose people. They go, where's the melody? It's still there, it's still there. So I'm going to play this jazzy part slowly in the right hand while playing the melody down here in the left hand, so you can hear how it's still very related. So like I mentioned earlier, Beethoven and other composers love to do this kind of compositional trick in theme variations where they get faster. Every variation is the same idea, but there's quicker subdivisions. Then you sort of fall off a cliff and things get really calm and it just feels so peaceful compared to this accelerating tempo you've had so far. So to use my wonderful Twinkle Twinkle Little Star variation from earlier, imagine I played about a minute or two now, and I've gone faster and faster and faster every variation, and at this point I do this. That drop off feels so incredible, right? Especially if you imagine you've had this whole progression of faster, 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 and then just calm and peace. That's what Beethoven does in this section I'm about to show you right now. We've had the build, we've got to the fast one, we played some fast scales, we've done all this stuff, then things really fall off and we get this. Now, it might be hard to hear, but that melody is still there. We get. The next one actually becomes a little easier to hear the melody again. It becomes more like the original melody. The left hand swing gets some rolling chords. And the right hand basically goes back pretty much to what I did at the beginning. now I'm going to skip ahead to the final one. I think maybe the most beautiful of all of them, maybe one of the most beautiful things Beethoven has ever written. You get the melody again, very plain up here in the right hand. Just literally the melody. Then while you're doing that, the left hand accompanies it with this little pattern there, but also there's a trill up here. Now, if you're thinking, Ryan, that's three things. You only have two hands. How are you going to trill and play a melody and keep the left hand going? Yeah, it gets pretty challenging at this point. This isn't a piece that I personally have ever like memorized or studied a whole lot, so I'm not great at it, but I just kind of want to give you a sense of how this sounds at the end. You're going to keep this trill going up here. You might have to trill on these two fingers or these two or some combination up there, depending on how big your hand size is, but you have this going. You also have, then you throw in this. And as you can tell, that is just amazing sounds, amazing texture up there. I always like to believe that Beethoven wrote this final page. This is the final page of the final sonata, and then just wrote the last note and died. It just feels like this is like the culmination of all of his work, all the, he's gone from there's beautiful music, there's angry music, there's this whole scope of stuff, in the end like this. Now, that didn't happen, by the way, in case you're curious. He did not write the last note and then proceed to die. This is Opus 111. There's a lot of pieces that came after he lived for several years, but it does kind of feel like that. It kind of feels like the culmination of everything just ends in this like beautiful, kind of heavenly high texture up here. It is just incredible stuff. Thank you so much for watching this video. Hopefully you learned something about theme and variation, also about this piece. I would encourage all of you to just take a second sometime soon, search for Opus 101 or Sonata 32. Either way, you'll find this piece. Listen to the whole thing when you have time. The first movement is that big, loud, angry, bombastic one. It'll really set up this last movement well. In the final movement, just try to really listen to the theme. This piece seems big at first, but if you can just try to track that melody, try to track it throughout, listen to it, hear how it gets faster, speeds up, gets crazier, then just ends with all this beautiful, gorgeous music. Thanks so much for watching. See you in the next one.